10 types of people we shouldn't help. Wisdom for living. Stoicism. Have you ever noticed the irony in helping certain people? You invest time, energy, and compassion, but they stay stuck, as if content to be lost in their own chaos. It's like throwing a life preserver to someone determined to keep drowning. Stoic philosophy warns us not to waste our energy on things we cannot change, and sometimes that includes people who choose not to help themselves. There are types of people who simply drain us, who take our help without any effort to change their situation. Sometimes, the wisest thing we can do is step back and let them face their own path. Today on Stoic in Your Life, we'll explore the 10 types of people we shouldn't help, those who leave us exhausted without moving an inch themselves. Stick around to discover why the most compassionate act may be knowing when to walk away. And before we dive in, if you enjoy thoughtful, transformative content like this, consider subscribing and turning on notifications for more wisdom in your feed. 1. The Immutable. In life, we meet all kinds of people, from those who lift us up with positivity and a thirst for growth to those seemingly anchored in negativity, refusing to budge from their comfort zones. Let's talk about the immutable, that person who, despite countless opportunities to improve, clings to their familiar patterns like a safety net. No matter how much you urge them to step forward, they stay firmly rooted, preferring to complain about their circumstances rather than change them. Picture yourself on a sinking ship. While you're tirelessly working to save everyone, the immutable just sits back, pointing out the unfairness of the cold water, refusing to help or even acknowledge the danger they're in. It's exhausting, right? Many of us have faced the frustration of helping someone who, no matter what you do, doesn't seem to want real change. They resist your advice, reject suggestions, and prefer to vent rather than take any constructive steps forward. But here's the hard truth. Trying to save such people doesn't just hurt them, it damages you. By repeatedly trying to assist those who won't help themselves, we risk pulling ourselves down into their inertia. Stoic philosophy, with its timeless insights, warns us against wasting energy on what we can't control. The Stoics remind us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The immutable's resistance isn't a reflection of your capability to help, but rather of their inability to leave behind the security of their comfort zone. It's like offering them a life jacket they'll never wear. No matter how much you want them to see the light, the decision is ultimately theirs. This is where our first lesson lies. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Imagine how much you could accomplish if you channeled all the energy spent on unappreciated advice and lost causes into something that genuinely matters to you. Boundaries serve as a reminder to ourselves that we're not responsible for another adult's unwillingness to improve. When you consistently try to fix someone who is unwilling to be fixed, it's easy to lose your sense of self and direction. A powerful Stoic truth applies here. Associate with those who will make a better person of you, as Seneca once advised. Choosing to surround yourself with people who encourage growth rather than those who cling to their stagnation is a gift you give yourself. Remember, you have a responsibility to protect your own mental and emotional energy. Overextending your compassion to those who habitually reject it is like pouring water into a bottomless cup. It leaves you drained and unfulfilled. Sometimes all someone needs is a sympathetic ear, not a life overhaul. Listening is a gift, and sometimes that's all you need to do. But don't mistake listening for shouldering their burdens or feeling obligated to solve their problems. Here, a dose of gentle detachment can go a long way. You're not their savior, and their struggles are not yours to carry. The Stoics teach us to value rational detachment, to guard our peace, and not let others disrupt it. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, said Epictetus. By focusing on your response rather than their behavior, you regain control over your own state of mind. Encourage self-reflection instead. If someone frequently brings up the same complaints, try asking open-ended questions rather than giving direct advice. Questions like, "What would make you feel better about this situation?" Or, "What small step do you think you could take to change things?" Gently guide them toward a new perspective without making them feel pressured or defensive. This subtle shift not only empowers them to take ownership, but also releases you from the burden of feeling you have to fix their life for them. Over time, you'll find that some people naturally embrace change while others continue to resist it. And that's okay. Everyone has their own timeline, and just as Marcus Aurelius observed, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. When we realize that not everyone is ready or willing to step forward, we release ourselves from the expectation that we need to push them. Ultimately, it's essential to understand that not everyone will embrace change, and that's not a reflection on your efforts. The immutable will continue to drift in their stagnant waters, and you're left with a choice. Join them in their aimless wandering or chart your own course. This is where Stoic wisdom shines. Sometimes, the greatest act of kindness we can offer is distance. As Stoicism teaches us to accept what we can't control, it also guides us to release those who choose not to change. Just as Carl Jung noted, some people choose suffering as a way of growing. Understanding this truth can free you from guilt and remind you that their journey isn't yours to carry. Choosing to walk away doesn't mean you're abandoning compassion. It means you're respecting your own boundaries and valuing your well-being. In a world full of complexities and challenges, protecting your energy becomes essential, especially when faced with people who prefer to stay static. The Stoics teach us that our greatest power lies in our ability to choose our responses and where we invest our time and energy. Don't let the immutable keep you tethered to their unchanging reality. Instead, surround yourself with those who inspire growth, learning, and resilience. In the words of Epictetus, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. When you choose who and what deserves your energy, you take back control of your own life's direction. As we journey through life, there will always be people who resist change, who seem perpetually stuck, and who drain the goodwill of those around them. But by understanding the importance of boundaries, valuing our own peace, and recognizing that not everyone will share our drive to grow, we learn to live wisely and compassionately while preserving our own strength. Choose wisely and remember, sometimes the best help we can offer is simply to let go. 2. The Manipulator. Have you ever felt as though you're surrounded by emotional vampires? Not the kind with sharp fangs and a menacing gaze, but rather those individuals who seem to attach themselves to your goodwill, draining you of energy and compassion as if it's an endless resource. These manipulators are often masterful at disguising their needs as urgent, subtly convincing you that your time, your presence, and even your resources are somehow owed to them. If you've ever found yourself wondering why you're feeling so drained after trying to help someone, or if you're beginning to notice that your own priorities always end up on the back burner whenever this person calls, it might be time to evaluate who truly deserves your support. In your relationships as plants in a personal garden. In healthy relationships, both people nurture each other, contributing to mutual growth and fulfillment. But when there's a manipulator in your life, this once thriving plant becomes a relentless cactus, demanding more water than any other, until you're left questioning why you feel so parched. Manipulators understand just how to make you feel guilty if you dare to say no, as if declining their demands equates to a betrayal of your shared connection. Your time, energy, and sometimes even your money become assets they subtly convince you are more essential to them than to you. They sell you the idea that their needs should be your top priority, but as Marcus Aurelius advised, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Guarding your peace and mental space is vital, and sometimes saying no is an act of preserving your inner peace, which is priceless. Helping others should add something positive to your life, a sense of connection, or at least the satisfaction of knowing you're supporting someone's journey toward self-improvement. But manipulators have a way of twisting every act of kindness you offer into yet another brick in the wall of their ego. They don't seek change or growth. They're looking for excuses to keep you enmeshed in their world, using your compassion as a tool to maintain their comfort. Here's the hard truth. If someone truly wants to improve, they'll show it through action, not constant dependency. So how do you recognize these insatiable takers before they drain you dry? A major red flag is the way they exploit your kindness consistently. Do you find yourself repeatedly rescuing them from the same issues without seeing any progress? Life can be challenging, but when every story feels like a tragic, never-ending soap opera, it may be time to question the script. They're often not seeking solutions. They're seeking attention, and you, unfortunately, are cast in the role of their enabler. Another telltale sign of a manipulator is their ability to use guilt as a weapon. Manipulators are experts in making you feel that by not helping them, you're somehow failing in your duty as a friend, partner, or even as a good person. If you're starting to feel obligated rather than willing when you offer help, this is a sign. Guilt should never be the driving force behind your actions, for genuine kindness comes from a place of freedom and choice. Real generosity doesn't feel like a burden. It brings satisfaction, not exhaustion. Pay attention to their stories, too. Are they perpetually wrapped in drama, crises, and self-pity? If their narratives revolve around constant misfortune, it's often a ploy to keep you emotionally invested. And make no mistake, manipulators thrive on these self-centered narratives, carefully crafted to make you feel that their every crisis somehow requires your intervention. As Epictetus once said, people are not disturbed by things but by the view they take of them. These individuals frame their world in such a way that you feel responsible for their every difficulty. Embracing Stoic principles doesn't mean turning into an emotional fortress or disconnecting from meaningful relationships. Life without empathy or connection would be hollow and cold. However, applying Stoic wisdom means knowing when to say no and understanding that not everyone deserves a place in your inner circle. If a relationship only brings constant drain, tension, or emotional exhaustion, consider that saying no is not an act of cruelty, but a decision to preserve your well-being. The truth is, by allowing a manipulator to continue exploiting your kindness, you're only reinforcing their behavior. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can offer is distance. As Seneca once advised, associate with those who will make a better person of you. When you choose not to cater to a manipulator's demands, you're not being unkind. You're respecting yourself and valuing the quality of your interactions. Remember that you are here to live your life to its fullest potential, not to play the role of a perpetual savior in someone else's drama. Helping others can indeed be an act of love and connection, but sometimes saying no is the only way to prevent yourself from becoming entangled in a toxic cycle. So, before you extend your hand, ask yourself honestly, are you helping because you want to, or are you helping because you feel trapped by their demands? Are you truly lending a hand, or have you become a pawn in someone else's game? As the Stoics teach, you are the author of your life's story, and no one else should have the pen. To keep your narrative strong, guard your boundaries, hold your values firm, and remember that you have the right to decide who deserves your support. In the words of Epictetus, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Take ownership of your choices, choosing to give only where it fosters true connection and growth. In a world full of complex relationships, emotional manipulators are an unfortunate reality. Yet by recognizing these behaviors, valuing your peace, and understanding that not everyone has the same intentions, you can live wisely, free from unnecessary guilt and exhaustion. Don't let the weight of others' burdens become your own. Choose wisely, protect your energy, and remember, real generosity blooms when both parties benefit, when it's rooted in mutual respect, and when it allows both of you to thrive rather than just survive. 3. The Victimizer. Have you ever encountered the victim? The person who drifts through life constantly complaining, yet always blaming someone else for their problems. This type of person doesn't seem to see themselves as the one in control of their own destiny. Instead, they act as though life is something that happens to them, not something they actively shape. They walk among us as if wearing a cape, but instead of swooping in to solve problems, they seem intent on gathering every grievance like it's a badge of honor, as if being wronged by the world somehow makes them special. You know the type. Phrases like, "It's not my fault," "Life is unfair," and "If only things were different," make up their endless list of excuses. It's as though they're forever auditioning for a role in a soap opera, casting themselves as the misunderstood hero endlessly battered by an unjust world. But beneath the surface, you can see what's really going on. Their need to blame others is often just a way of avoiding responsibility for their own choices. The victim doesn't just deny accountability, they outright reject control of their own life. Imagine them as a sailor refusing to learn how to navigate their ship, instead drifting along and pointing to the sharks in the water, the waves crashing around them, the stormy sky. Anything but their own refusal to take the helm. They prefer the comfort of feeling wronged, even if it means staying stuck in the same place. It's as if they'd rather complain about the water than learn to swim. Stoic wisdom teaches us that true strength and wisdom begin with the acceptance of what we cannot control and the courage to take responsibility for what we can. But the victim doesn't see it that way. They'd rather wallow in the familiarity of self-pity than confront the discomfort of change. They're like a fish that's too afraid to leave the tank, preferring to stare through the glass walls at a world they'll never explore, blaming everything around them for their lack of freedom. Let's dig a little deeper. Picture yourself in a waiting room, and in the corner sits the victim, airing their grievances with the same enthusiasm someone might show off a new phone. Every problem they face, every setback or struggle, is painted as someone else's fault. "My boss doesn't recognize my talent," they might say, or "My friends aren't supportive," or "The universe has it in for me." Meanwhile, you're sitting there, quietly wondering, have you tried changing anything in your life instead of just complaining about it? This person doesn't need solutions, they need a scapegoat. The Stoics remind us that we're the authors of our own lives, and that while we may not control the circumstances around us, we do control our responses. Epictetus put it simply, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But to the victim, these words are almost foreign. Instead of stepping up to the challenges of life, they immerse themselves in a never-ending cycle of self-pity, carefully crafted narratives that keep them as the perpetual victim and you as their captive audience. So, what do we do with the victim? This is where things can get tricky. It's easy to feel compassion for people, especially when they're suffering. There's a natural human tendency to want to help, to fix, to be the person who lifts others out of their struggles. But be warned, some people, like the victim, are not looking for help. They're looking for someone to listen to their complaints, to validate their pain without ever challenging them to grow. They're like a friend who's constantly telling you how awful the road is but has no intention of taking a different route. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do is to step back, to let them face the consequences of their own choices. Imagine offering a map to someone who insists that the potholes in the road are everyone else's fault, refusing to see that they could take a different path. You can guide them, but they have to be willing to take the first step on their own. Often the best approach is to become a mirror rather than a rescuer. Show them through your actions and choices that change is possible and that the power to shape one's life lies within. The victim is comfortable in their role, and if you're not careful, you could easily get swept up into their storm of grievances, feeling drained and frustrated every time you engage. The Stoics teach us to take responsibility for our own reactions, to recognize when someone's negativity is affecting our well-being. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So when you find yourself facing a victim, pause and ask yourself, am I genuinely helping, or am I merely enabling their complaints? Victims often don't need your sympathy. They need a reality check. a reminder that life won't improve until they start taking accountability for their own actions. It's not about abandoning them, but about realizing that not everyone is ready to change, and that's okay. Helping others doesn't mean sacrificing your own peace. But don't misunderstand. Embracing Stoicism doesn't mean turning cold or ignoring the struggles of others. Stoicism is about balancing empathy with self-respect, about knowing when to lend a hand and when to step back. Compassion doesn't mean allowing yourself to be pulled into someone else's drama repeatedly. Sometimes saying no is an act of kindness. Sometimes refusing to engage in their complaints is a way of protecting both yourself and them. Helping isn't about taking on someone's burdens as your own, but encouraging them to carry their own weight. Life is too precious to spend it caught up in someone else's cycle of blame and negativity. Before you reach out to help, ask yourself, are you empowering them to improve or just validating their unwillingness to change? When you encounter a victim in your life, remember the words of Seneca. Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Don't let someone else's negativity pull you down. You have the power to choose your own path, to surround yourself with people who inspire growth, resilience, and positivity. Let your life be a reflection of your values, a testament to the power of accountability and self-respect. The victim may be content to stay in their comfort zone, to cast blame rather than take responsibility, but that doesn't mean you have to stay by their side. You're not here to carry their story, to shoulder their weight, or to validate their endless grievances. You're here to live your own life, to grow, to evolve, and to choose relationships that lift you up, not drag you down. So when you encounter the victim, remember that their journey is not yours to fix. You can offer guidance, a reminder that change is within their power. But ultimately, they must decide to take it. Don't let their story take over yours. The best gift you can give is often not your sympathy, but your strength. The strength to walk your own path, to live according to your own values, and to be the author of your life. Epictetus said it best, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Help those willing to change, but for those who cling to blame and excuses, sometimes the most powerful act of kindness is letting them go. 4. The Narcissist. Have you ever felt like you're caught on a merry-go-round that never stops? This endless ride is called narcissism, and on it, there's only one rule. All eyes must always be on the person at the center, the narcissist. These individuals are masters of self-validation, tirelessly seeking attention and recognition, yet ironically they show little interest in the well-being or growth of those around them. Narcissists are quick to draw others in, promising friendship or connection, but often their primary goal is to secure a steady audience to validate their importance. As Stoic philosophy teaches, we must carefully consider who we choose to help, and narcissists often serve as a stark reminder of the cost of misplaced compassion. It's like the child in a crowded park, waving his hands and shouting, look at me," while juggling, desperate to keep the spotlight on himself. This is the narcissist's essence, an adult trapped in an endless cycle of seeking validation without ever acknowledging the needs or feelings of others. Narcissists want to be the lead character, not only in their own lives, but also in every story around them. Whether on social media, in family gatherings, or even simple conversations, their need for attention is insatiable. They go to great lengths to capture the admiration and approval of others, as if every breath depends on being noticed. This is where things get complicated. When you try to offer them advice or solutions to their problems, they react as if you've threatened them. Like a cat confronted with a cucumber, they often respond with distrust or outright rejection. This is because they aren't interested in genuine improvement or introspection. They're interested in maintaining their status as the center of the universe. Offering your help to a narcissist can be as futile as trying to fill a bucket with a hole at the bottom. You can keep pouring in support, kindness, and patience, yet all that effort will drain away, leaving nothing but a puddle of wasted time and energy on the floor. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Helping a narcissist can quickly drain your energy, and since they're driven by a craving for attention rather than a desire for change, they may see your kindness as yet another opportunity to focus on themselves rather than appreciating the help. Have you ever noticed how a narcissist turns every story into something about them, even when it's meant to be about you or someone else? If you offer advice, they may dismiss it or shift the focus back to their latest accomplishment or problem, effectively using your attention like a mirror to reflect their self-image, rather than showing any real gratitude. So how do we handle narcissists when they're in our lives? First and foremost, it's essential to set clear boundaries. Your time, energy, and attention are precious resources, and you don't owe anyone a limitless supply, especially not someone who only values you as an audience to their life's drama. Establish limits on how much time you're willing to spend on their issues, and don't feel guilty about protecting your well-being. Epictetus, a famed Stoic philosopher, advised, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." Accept that you cannot change the nature of others, but you can control your response. Instead of pouring energy into someone who refuses to look beyond themselves, focus on those who value your support and who show signs of genuine growth and appreciation. Think of yourself as a gardener. Instead of watering weeds that absorb your time without blooming, choose to nurture flowers that return the favor with beauty and growth. Narcissists are often like weeds, constantly seeking validation but rarely offering anything meaningful in return. They thrive in the attention you give them, but unlike a blooming plant, they provide little sustenance or reward. Stoicism reminds us to be intentional about where we invest our help, advising us to recognize when someone merely seeks a platform and not genuine guidance. You have the power to choose which battles deserve your time and effort, so don't let yourself become an extra in someone else's show. Instead, put your energy into relationships that give back, that respect your time, and that bring meaning to your life. Remember, your time is invaluable, so don't let it be squandered by those who only seek validation without any intention of change. Invest your time in people who genuinely value your presence and see your support as a gift, not a given. Life is too short to play a background role in the endless drama of a narcissist. Take this to heart, my friend. You have a limited number of days, and each one should be filled with purpose, growth, and relationships that enrich you. As Seneca wisely said, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." Choose wisely, protect your peace, and don't waste your precious moments in the pursuit of someone else's vanity. If you've ever dealt with someone who just refuses to face reality, comment below with "Facing reality is freedom." Let's see how many of you have encountered these challenges. 5. The one who doesn't value your time. If there's one thing we all know is truly precious, it's time. Yet some people treat it as if it were an endless resource, like a child who spills juice on a carpet without a second thought. We're talking about the time wasters, those individuals who consume your hours, your focus, and your energy without any regard for the value of your day. Now think of your time like a lottery ticket. It's valuable and limited. You wouldn't hand over a winning ticket to someone who wouldn't appreciate it, yet time wasters have a knack for getting you to spend your minutes and hours on them, leaving you with that empty feeling, like you've come up with nothing after investing in something that was supposed to pay off. These are the people who pop up just as you settle in for a quiet evening, or try to tackle an important task, as if your schedule were some open buffet where everyone feels free to help themselves without a thought about how it might affect you. These people operate with a simple pattern. They don't respect your boundaries, and they don't care about your needs. You could have a full agenda, an urgent project, or even the basic desire to do nothing and just recharge. But to a time waster, their demands take precedence. It's as if they see you as a clock that should be ticking for them around the clock, expecting you to always be available without a pause or a polite "no thank you." In reality, we all need those moments of rest or that freedom to say no without guilt. Dealing with a time waster can feel as futile as trying to assemble a 1,000-piece puzzle in the dark. constantly searching for the right pieces while someone keeps scattering them around. But there is hope. Protecting your time is within your power, and it begins by setting clear boundaries and practicing the art of saying no. Imagine your time as a garden, and every time waster as a persistent weed trying to strangle your flowers. Defend your schedule, respect it, and don't hesitate to communicate your limits. You're not obligated to meet others' expectations just because they feel entitled to your time. To truly safeguard your day, it's essential to prioritize what matters. Create a list of your goals and commitments, and remember that your time deserves the same respect as any resource with real value. When a time waster appears, sometimes silence is the best response. Let their requests fall flat, drowned out by your own sense of purpose. You don't owe anyone an explanation for valuing your peace of mind. If you think about it, what would a Stoic do when faced with a time waster? A Stoic would recognize that time wasters are, in a sense, thieves attempting to steal what is most precious: your hours, your peace, your focus. As Epictetus said, people are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them. To allow a time waster to sap your energy is to let them disturb your tranquility. Recognizing these individuals and guarding your hours with a clear plan lets you maintain balance in your life. After all, you get to decide how each second is spent. No one else has that right unless you give it to them. Start reclaiming control over your time, and let others know that you're the owner of your schedule, not just a passive player in their plans. Your time is, in fact, your life, and letting others decide how you spend it can leave you feeling unfulfilled, as though you're on the sidelines of your own story. Instead, take charge, focusing on the relationships and tasks that bring you closer to your own goals and values. And as you do, remember this truth: life is too short to waste on people who treat your time as a given rather than the precious asset it is. You're not here to fill someone else's agenda. You're here to live with intention, to grow, and to direct your energy where it counts. So take ownership of your minutes and hours and give them purpose. Embrace your role as the director of your own time, not just an extra in the theater of someone else's life. 6. The deaf. That person who appears attentive, maybe even enthusiastic while you speak, yet your guidance vanishes the moment you finish. It's like speaking to a wall. No matter how wise or well-intentioned your advice is, it bounces back without leaving a mark. Offering help to a person like this can feel like trying to fill a bucket riddled with holes. It's exhausting, and each attempt leaves you feeling drained, like air slowly leaking from a balloon. Picture yourself as a coach guiding a player on the field, giving clear directions and strategies. But when the game starts, they ignore everything you've taught them, fumbling and failing as you watch from the sidelines. They're comfortable in the role of a passive listener, leaving you in a comedy of errors, giving advice that goes unused, time and time again. Now, here's the frustrating part. You may feel a natural pull to keep trying, hoping they'll eventually apply what you've shared. But why should you continue investing energy into someone who shows no real desire to change or improve? Stoic philosophy, with its emphasis on self-discipline and respecting our own limits, urges us to be mindful of where we invest our time and effort. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In this case, your reaction is just as important as the advice you offer. When someone refuses to listen, perhaps the best response isn't to keep talking, but to recognize the limits of what you can do. The deaf listener holds tight to their comfort zone, letting your words slip by without ever reaching deeper consideration. Let's explore the impact this kind of relationship can have on you. Helping someone who refuses to listen isn't just frustrating. It can become demoralizing, draining your motivation to offer help to others who might actually need and appreciate it. It's easy to start doubting whether your words hold any value when faced with constant rejection, and that, too, is a lesson in knowing when to let go. Offering your advice repeatedly to someone who doesn't listen is like watering a barren patch of soil. No matter how much you pour, nothing will grow. Meanwhile, you've got other parts of your life, and other people in it, that could benefit from your insights and encouragement. So ask yourself, where would your energy be best spent? Wouldn't it be more rewarding to invest your efforts in someone who genuinely values your perspective and uses it to make meaningful changes? To handle the deaf listener in your life, setting boundaries is key. If they're not respecting your advice, there's no need to feel obligated to keep giving it. Protecting your energy is essential, as Stoicism teaches, because ultimately your well-being depends on the choices you make. You might start by gently stepping back, letting them know that you're there to support them if they ever choose to act on the guidance you've offered. But as Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Choosing to guard your time and energy isn't a failure. It's a wise response to someone who is choosing to stay stuck. Think of it like this. You wouldn't keep planting seeds in barren soil, so why continue pouring energy into someone who has shown no intention of growing? Another helpful approach is to think of your time and advice as precious resources. Imagine you're a gardener. Would you spend your time watering weeds that refuse to grow, or would you nurture the flowers that bloom and add beauty to the garden? The deaf listener, unfortunately, may be like a patch of barren soil or an unresponsive weed. No matter how much you water, nothing changes, and you're left wondering if it was worth the effort. Sometimes, the most compassionate response is to let people face the consequences of their own inaction. Life has a way of teaching lessons to those who won't listen, and sometimes stepping back allows them the space to hear what life has to say. It's important to remember that you're not abandoning them. You're respecting your own boundaries and allowing them the dignity to grow, or to choose not to, in their own time. Stoic philosophy encourages us to find balance and compassion, to help others, but not at the cost of our own peace. In a world where everyone wants to feel heard and appreciated, we each have a responsibility to protect our mental and emotional energy. Constantly giving advice to someone who never takes it is like running on a treadmill with no destination. It's a lot of effort without moving forward. The deaf listener may never value your advice the way others will, so it's up to you to choose wisely. When you share your time and wisdom, invest it in those who truly seek to grow, to learn, and to improve. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one. By choosing to focus on those who respect and value your help, you're not only lifting others up, but also setting an example of self-respect and personal discipline. In the end, remember, personal growth and change come from action, not from passive listening or empty nodding. You can offer advice to those ready to hear it, but don't let your own growth be stunted by someone else's refusal to move forward. Life is too short to keep repeating yourself to someone who isn't willing to take the first step. 7. The dramatic one. The dramatic type, the one who seems to believe they're living in a Shakespearean tragedy, where every day unfolds as if scripted for maximum heartbreak and upheaval. We all know someone like this, someone who manages to turn every mundane moment into a scene worthy of an Oscar-winning performance. Think about it. Whether it's a minor inconvenience or a genuine setback, they cast themselves as the misunderstood hero of a grand, sorrowful tale. And while the impulse to help might tug at you, sometimes the best support you can offer to these eternally tormented souls is simply not getting involved in their endless theater of melodrama. Imagine you're seated in a movie theater, ready to enjoy a film, but suddenly the lights go down and, instead of the film, you hear a loud, dramatic sobbing. No, it's not a scene from the film. It's your friend, the dramatist, firmly planted in the spotlight of their own personal tragedy. Every conversation feels like a script meant to make you feel either guilt-ridden or full of despair on their behalf. And no matter what you try, whether it's offering solutions, support, or just an empathetic ear, it often feels like throwing gasoline on a fire. Helping them can be exhausting, even maddening, as though you're trapped in their version of reality, where the sky is perpetually falling. The Stoics, with their grounded wisdom, emphasize the importance of indifference to things we cannot control. If you attempt to shift the perspective of a dramatic individual, it's likely you'll end up ensnared in their web of negativity and self-pity. Instead, establish boundaries. Imagine you're a photographer capturing beautiful landscapes. If you spend too much time around a dramatist, your gallery will soon be filled with nothing but dark clouds and endless storms. By setting clear boundaries, you're not indicating a lack of care. You're simply choosing not to let their perpetual tragedy overtake your mental landscape. Practicing compassion from a safe distance is crucial with the dramatist. It's possible to feel sympathy for their situation without letting their negativity seep into your own life. Visualize a protective bubble around you, one that allows you to engage with empathy, but shields you from being engulfed by their relentless waves of emotion. Think of yourself like a superhero, who can act with kindness and empathy, but knows when to keep a healthy distance. Their story may be loud and attention-grabbing, but it doesn't have to pull you in or change the course of your day. By maintaining this boundary, you preserve your peace while acknowledging their struggle without getting swept into it. Another approach to consider with the dramatist is offering them a reflective mirror instead of solutions. When they present you with yet another tale of doom and gloom, respond with questions rather than answers. Asking something like, "Do you really think things are as bad as they seem?" can be a gentle way to prompt them toward self-reflection without directly confronting them. Instead of embarking on a mission to rescue them, sometimes a simple dose of reality, delivered with genuine curiosity, is all that's needed. However, keep in mind that this isn't about taking on the responsibility of making them see the light. It's merely an opportunity to encourage a more balanced perspective. You're offering them a chance to think differently, but whether they take it is ultimately up to them. 7.1. And don't overlook the power of humor. Life can indeed be absurd at times, and sometimes, the best way to cope with its absurdity is to laugh at it. If the dramatist launches into their latest saga of suffering, try responding with a light touch. So, how was the apocalypse this time around? This gentle humor may help them realize the exaggeration in their reaction and perhaps lighten the weight of their emotions. Humor has a way of bringing perspective, of shrinking the grandiosity of their tale down to something more manageable. It's not about mocking them, but rather showing them a less intense, more balanced way to view their challenges. Ultimately, trying to help the dramatist is like attempting to empty the ocean with a bucket. Your efforts, no matter how sincere, are likely to have limited impact, and you may find yourself exhausted by the process. Accepting that some people prefer to live in their world of self-created dramas can be liberating. You're not dismissing their emotions. You're simply choosing not to sacrifice your own mental peace by diving into their continuous theater of the absurd. Instead, surround yourself with those who approach life with resilience and joy, even when challenges arise. Life is too short to become an actor in someone else's ongoing play of endless troubles and melodrama. As Epictetus wisely said, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. So next time you encounter the dramatist in full form, remember that their story isn't yours to play a part in. Focus on writing your own story, one grounded in purpose and inner peace, and let their endless drama remain in the theater of their own making. 8. The Ungrateful. Have you ever offered help to someone expecting even a simple thank you in return only to receive a cold, dismissive nod? You're probably familiar with the ungrateful, the type who breezes through life as though kindness and effort are things they're entitled to collect without ever reciprocating. These people can feel like emotional black holes, absorbing everything you give without ever showing appreciation or gratitude in return. And it's not just disheartening, it's draining. In Stoic philosophy, gratitude is seen as a core virtue, essential for maintaining emotional balance. So, why should we waste our energy on those who seem to have missed that lesson? Think of it this way. If you're in a boat and see someone struggling in the water, your instinct might be to throw them a life preserver, to jump in and save them. The grateful person looks at you with relief, thanks you, and acknowledges your effort. But the ungrateful? They might look back at you with irritation, saying, "What took you so long? I almost drowned because of you." No matter how many times you rescue them, their response is always the same: a lack of appreciation, or worse, criticism. We often forget that not everyone we try to help actually wants help, and some even resent it. The ungrateful are like plants that never blossom no matter how much you water them. They absorb endlessly, give nothing in return, and ultimately leave you feeling depleted. And while it's true that not everyone was raised to show appreciation, that doesn't mean you should sacrifice your own emotional well-being to their indifference. Handling ungrateful people begins with setting boundaries. When you recognize someone is taking advantage of your generosity, don't hesitate to draw a line. As Seneca wisely said, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." Your kindness and efforts deserve to be directed toward those who truly value them, not wasted on those who see them as mere conveniences. Another approach to manage these situations is to assess the value of your help before giving it. Ask yourself, will this person genuinely appreciate what I'm offering? If the answer leans toward no, then it might be wise to save that energy for someone who will. Think of it like reserving your finest ingredients for a special dinner rather than using them on a frozen pizza. Your time and effort are valuable, and there's no shame in being selective about where you invest them. You wouldn't pour water into a cracked vase over and over, so why continuously pour your energy into someone who doesn't appreciate it? It's also important to practice self-gratitude. Sometimes, in our drive to help others, we forget to value our own needs and recognize the energy we put into the world. Take time to nurture yourself and to be around people who genuinely appreciate your support and kindness. Stoicism encourages self-reflection and gratitude, even for oneself. Think about it. When was the last time you stopped and acknowledged the kindness you offer to others? Embracing self-gratitude allows you to see your own value, ensuring you don't rely on external validation from people who can't or won't give it. Lastly, accept that not everyone changes, and that's okay. Some people are set in their ways, and it's freeing to recognize that you aren't responsible for forcing them to appreciate you. Expecting gratitude from the ungrateful can be as futile as trying to fix a broken clock that stubbornly displays the same time, no matter how many times you wind it up. The clock won't change, and neither will some people. Stoic wisdom teaches us to let go of expectations that lead to disappointment. Epictetus once said, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the view they take of them." In other words, it's our expectations that often bring us frustration. Letting go of the need for thanks from ungrateful people will lighten your emotional load and restore your peace of mind. So, the next time you find yourself dealing with an ungrateful person, remind yourself that you don't have to be the hero in their story. Life is too short to spend on those who don't recognize the value of what you bring. Seek to surround yourself with those who genuinely appreciate your efforts and contributions. After all, as the saying goes, gratitude is the heart of a fulfilled life. 9. The Clerk. Have you ever had that experience where someone looks at you with those sad, needy eyes as if their very survival depended on you? Welcome to the world of the dependent, those individuals who move through life carrying a backpack stuffed with problems, expecting you to lift that weight off their shoulders. At first, it may not seem like a big deal. They ask for a small favor or some advice, but soon, you find yourself drowning in their endless dilemmas and indecisions. It's like being at a lively party, surrounded by laughter and music, when suddenly you're cornered by the dependent. With an uncanny ability to turn even light-hearted conversation into a deep dive into their struggles, they'll start sharing their latest crisis, from their bad day at work to their dog's escape, and even their panic over what to make for dinner. You realize they're not just looking for companionship. They're hoping you'll offer solutions, carry their burdens, and somehow solve the tangled web of their life for them. The Stoics teach us that while we may not control everything that happens to us, we have complete control over how we respond. So when you're faced with someone who seems to expect you to be their emotional anchor, remember that you are not responsible for their life choices or their happiness. This is where boundaries become essential. Imagine yourself on a boat. If someone is drilling holes in the hull, your duty isn't to sit back and hope they stop. It's to keep yourself afloat and establish limits. Let them know, kindly but firmly, that there are times when you're simply not available to solve their issues. This honest approach can be refreshing for both of you. It shows that you're willing to be supportive, but only within reasonable limits. Encouraging independence is another key step. Rather than acting as a lifeline, think of yourself as a coach. Ask questions that prompt them to think independently, like, what would you do if you didn't have anyone to help? Or, what solutions have you already considered? This approach nudges them to take ownership of their decisions, pushing them to reflect on their capabilities instead of relying on you as a safety net. Often, people just need a little nudge to discover they're more capable than they believe. By shifting the conversation toward their own strengths, you help them grow without becoming the person they turn to whenever they face a challenge. It's equally important to practice emotional detachment. Sometimes, in trying to help, we start to feel as if their problems are our own. This is where Stoic philosophy can be particularly helpful. Practice separating their emotions from yours, creating a healthy emotional distance. Picture it like learning to dance. You don't have to follow the sad rhythm they're playing. Staying detached doesn't mean you're unkind or indifferent. It simply means you're taking care of your own well-being by maintaining a balanced perspective. Sometimes the dependent just needs a reality check, a shift in perspective. You can offer this by gently asking them to view their problems from a different angle. Ask something like, what would it look like if you approach this from a different perspective? Or, is there a way to break this down into smaller, manageable steps? These questions encourage them to step back and see that their challenges may not be as overwhelming as they seem. It's not about rescuing them. It's about guiding them to see that they're capable of facing their issues on their own. When they realize that you're not there to solve every problem, they may start looking inward for the answers, building resilience rather than dependence. At the end of the day, dealing with the dependent is challenging, but as the Stoics remind us, what matters most is not the external situation, but how we choose to respond to it. You are not obligated to carry someone else's burdens at the expense of your own peace. Your energy, time, and attention are valuable, and it's wise to protect them from those who would drain them without giving back. Learn to say no, to set boundaries, and to remember that your life isn't a lifeboat meant for everyone else. Surround yourself with people who strive for independence and growth, rather than those who lean on you as a constant crutch. After all, as Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. True freedom and peace come from choosing wisely where and how you invest your energy. Ever felt drained by helping someone who just won't listen? Drop a "protect your peace" in the comments if you've been there too. 10. The denier. Encountering the denier can feel like stepping into an alternate reality where logic and reason simply don't apply. This person clings to their distorted view of the world as if it's a safety blanket, even when life itself is shouting in every way possible that things are not as they insist. Refusing to accept reality is more than just self-deception. It's like attempting to push a brick wall with bare hands, futile and exhausting. Trying to help someone who lives in denial can feel as pointless as teaching a fish to fly. No matter how much guidance you offer, it never takes root. Suppose you have a compass that always points north, yet the denier has decided that south is the new north. And there you are, the well-meaning friend, pointing them in the right direction, only for them to look back at you as if you're speaking in riddles. No, they insist. North isn't real. Everyone knows that south is the way. If you've ever tried to help a denier, you know the feeling of hitting a wall made of illusions, and the only tool at your disposal is mounting frustration. This isn't just draining. It's a fundamental waste of time. You could have the patience of a Stoic philosopher, yet even the most resilient Stoic would struggle after repeated attempts to open the eyes of someone committed to ignoring reality. So, what can you do? In truth, the denier resides in a self-constructed fantasy where problems dissolve with a mere snap of the fingers, and you, my friend, don't possess any magical powers to change that. Sometimes the only way to truly help a denier is to walk away. Let them know with calm honesty that while you care about them, you can't allow their avoidance of reality to drain your energy. You have your own life to live, and it's a life grounded in reality, not in illusions. Remember the wisdom of the Stoics. You cannot change others. If the denier chooses to live in a bubble, that's their prerogative. Your duty is to protect your own mental health and well-being. Now, if you're determined to try one last approach, you might consider using a bit of irony to shine a light on the absurdity of their viewpoint. A touch of humor, lightly applied, can sometimes penetrate where arguments cannot, revealing the contradictions in their thinking without the pressure of direct confrontation. As Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." By responding to the denier with gentle irony or playful sarcasm, you might manage to open their mind just a bit, even if it's just for a moment. However, don't expect miracles. Irony and humor only go so far when someone is deeply rooted in denial. It's also important to recognize that you need a support system of people who see the world with clarity. Spending too much time around someone who rejects reality can cloud your own perception. So seek the company of those who value truth and authenticity. After all, if you're going to face life's challenges, it's best to do it with people who are equally grounded and not lost in illusions. The denier is, ultimately, one of those people you're better off not trying to save. Life is too short to waste precious time convincing someone that the sun rises in the east and not the west. With a Stoic mindset, you can see that sometimes the best way to care for someone is to let them follow their path, even if that path involves tripping over the illusions they refuse to abandon. So, next time you find yourself in the company of a denier, take a deep breath, smile, and remind yourself that sometimes the only way forward is to let go. The Stoics understood that detachment from things beyond our control is essential to peace. As they often said, denial may be the first stage of coming to terms with reality, but for some, it's the only stage they'll ever reach. Your peace of mind and emotional balance are worth preserving, so save your energy for those who live with open eyes and a willingness to face reality head-on. Thank you for joining us today on Stoic in Your Life as we explored the 10 types of people we shouldn't help. Remember, choosing where to invest your time and energy is a vital part of living a balanced and purposeful life. If you found value in this video, please give it a like, share it with those who may benefit, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll never miss our upcoming videos on Stoic wisdom and practical insights. We're grateful for your support and look forward to having you with us on the journey to living wisely. See you in the next video.